Hello there. This is the Tarot for December 2024, and we have some interesting cards and insights to share this month. So the concerns that sparked the questions this month had to do with first illegal immigration, people, the whole illegal immigrant situation. I had not asked about the financial system for quite a while. So I thought maybe a check-in was due there. Then I was really quite concerned about Ukraine bombing Russia and the result of that. So then lastly, I consulted the animal medicine cards to see what kind of advice the animals would share with us for the month of December. So let's begin. The questions are, number one, what will be the results of Trump's efforts to deport thousands of illegal immigrants? Number two, how will our financial system do over the next 3 months? So the next quarter. Number three, what will be the result of Ukraine and NATO bombing Russian territory? And number four, what advice does the animal kingdom have for us in December? So the cards drawn were first, the 10 of Cups. Second, the Devil, number 15 in the major arcana, meaning it's a major issue. Justice was the third one. Number 11 in the major arcana. And the last one was the Turkey, number 31 in the animal medicine system. So let's look at these a little bit deeper. Question number one, what will be the results of Trump's efforts to deport thousands of illegal immigrants? And the card drawn here was the 10 of Cups. A card that has to do with the happy homeland, and yet it has a lot of hidden energies working in the background. As usual, the cards are showing their depth and subtleties because our question definitely concerns our homeland and the tensions raised by the sudden influx of thousands of people who are being housed, fed, and supported by us. So when you look at the card, you see a man and a woman standing together, arms raised as if in greeting as they look across a beautiful landscape. Is this the way the illegal immigrants felt as they entered America? As if they had reached heaven or the promised land? The man is wearing an orange-brown coat, representing business possibilities. And the woman is wearing a long blue dress, symbolizing a paradox. A paradox is holding two conflicting things. And the paradox is clarity with depression. The red train dragging behind her, that red train symbolizes a big lesson of some kind, or some kind of learning, accompanied by passion or anger. So 2 children play near them, and they appear to be dancing or playing Ring Around the Rosie. And that's a child's song. And the dance, it's kind of a dance game that ends with ashes, ashes, we all fall down. This is one of those hidden subtleties I just mentioned that indicates the situation may have a less than desirable outcome, even though things appear to be okay at the moment. The people in this scene have their backs to the viewer, to us. We cannot see their faces. On the one hand, this represents the idea that the immigrants just want to blend in. They don't want to be singled out. And on the other hand, Since our question is about deporting them, it says that we don't want to see them clearly. We don't want to know them as people and don't want to see their faces or think about how they feel. A house with a red roof sits partially hidden by the trees on a hill, symbolizing home, hearth, and a place to develop one's identity and skills. However, the fact that it's on a hill, hills usually indicate problems, challenges, an uphill battle. That hill symbolizes an idealistic dream that may be unreachable. And the fact that it's partially hidden, that represents something that may not be completely or is only partially thought out. Since our question is about the results of deporting thousands of illegal immigrants, this warns that this may not be a well thought out plan that ends up being unachievable. There's a large, covers, right across the sky, large red, blue, and yellow rainbow in the sky. Red indicating passion, blue indicating a need for clarity, and yellow representing an intelligent approach to a situation. Although a rainbow in the sky is a beautiful sight in the world of nature, here it represents a cultural fantasy, a symbolical, let's pretend. So are we pretending that we can deport thousands of illegal immigrants and everything will be all right? Are the immigrants pretending that they can just walk into the U.S. and everything will be all right? Rainbows are ephemeral, transitory visions, and they form a kind of energy. They're formed from energy that can be used for good or for ill. They represent something that was not good. Originally, the floods and Noah's, having to get in the ark. But then the promise, we won't drown the world anymore. So inside the rainbow are 10 cups arranged in an arc. The cups symbolize the hope of fulfillment of lifelong dreams. But are those the dreams of the immigrants or the dreams of the American people? The warning is for both. And it carries the message to be aware of becoming intoxicated with some idea or romanticizing a situation, a place, or an idea. Those cups are floating way above the people on the ground. And that represents a dream or a goal that is out of reach, even though the illusion, the rainbow, persists. And the advice here is to beware of losing oneself while pursuing something that may be unattainable. Are we going to lose something really big, really important that we don't even see yet, don't understand, can't conceive of by deporting these people? There's a river flowing through the card, and the river symbolizes the river of life that will keep on flowing regardless of whether the immigrants go or stay. But the river carries the message. Only those who remain in a state of change, flexible, in other words, only those who remain in a state of change can remain true to themselves. The light blue sky calls for clarity in the midst of passion. And the card itself demands the fulfillment of 4 tasks. The first task is to fulfill only those dreams and wishes that are worthwhile. The second task is to throw useless ideas and dreams overboard. Get rid of them. They're useless. The third is to learn to recognize justified fears. What is going to be the result of trying to deport thousands of people? And the fourth task is to face those fears and deal with them honestly and in a way that seeks to create as much fulfillment for all as possible. As much fulfillment for all as possible. The number 10 is the number of, quote, one too many. And it's one of those eerie reminders of many people's attitudes toward the illegal immigrants. There's too many here. That's how people feel. The card itself is known as the Lord of Satiety. And to be satiated means to be full, almost too full, a feeling of having eaten too much or taken in too much. The Lord of Satiety. So keywords for the 10 of Cups are perfection of human love for one another. Ooh. Whatever is in the querent's best interest. A querent is the person asking the question. Doing the querying is called a querent. So whatever is in the querent's best interest. Dreamy. Imagination. Letting go. Making way for the new. A disturbance is due. Indignation. Homeland. Agitation. And self-undoing. Let's not undo ourselves. Question number 2. How will our financial system do over the next 3 months? And the card drawn here was not very encouraging. It was the devil. Number 15 in the major arcana. We've seen this card before. And it symbolizes being caught in a burdensome situation of which there is good reason to be afraid. Caught in a burdensome situation with reason to be afraid. It warns of a vampire-like energy that cannot be vanquished until it is recognized and dealt with. Is that vampire our financial system? In looking at the card, we see that a large horned devil sits on a black cube. In addition to representing bedevilment, which means to get so heated and so passionate you don't know what you're doing, confusion, loss of common sense. So besides those things, the devil represents losing our sense of humor and being left without any power. The black cube symbolizes the material world and the endless wants and desires that plague a greedy population. It warns of problems without obvious solutions. Devils are tough to deal with. It's not obvious unless you go deep inside. And the possibility of having to face unknown parts of oneself due to a crisis. So what parts of yourself would come to the foreground if the financial system was not doing well or collapsed? The devil has a triangular head with a sharply angular pointy chin, and it's pointing downwards. And large horns come out and also point down. Together, these indicate low levels of consciousness and goals that are not very lofty. The devil has large gray bat wings, and this represents a tendency to fly or operate in the dark and consider oneself as above others. The wings extend off the edges of the card. And this says that some dealings, or what goes on in that financial system, are happening in a way that's not upfront. It's not available for us to see, nor can we know how extensive those dealings are. The wings are gray, and that points to a lack of caring, like detachment from the population. We don't care. They don't care about us. And that's really not a good indicator for a system that's holding and managing our money. A man and a woman are chained to the black cube, indicating a serious dependency on the material world and the life it makes possible. However, those chains are wrapped very loosely around their necks, and it's easy to see that either or both of them could simply lift that chain from the neck and be free. Both man and woman are also completely naked, representing the lack of protection or shielding from the work of the devil, or in this case, the work of the financial system. Both the man and the woman have a long tail. The man's tail ends in fire, symbolizing passion, sexuality, and anger. The woman's tail ends in grapes, symbolizing fine wines and the desire for all of the goodies life can offer. The warning here is to pay at least some attention to our spirituality and our primordial nature, which is where the true spirit of the self can be found. The devil is holding a torch of fire, and that torch is meant to bring light to the world in order to help the people see clearly and differentiate between positive and negative. But instead of holding it high so everybody can see, he holds it down low, symbolizing an attempt to avoid shedding light on things, to create shadows, and to hide things. Is our financial system hiding something from us? His legs and haunches are hairy goat legs, and the goat carries the message that we should listen to ourselves and our instincts in order to avoid becoming a scapegoat. Listen to ourselves. Listen to our intuition. We don't want to be scapegoats. Goat also urges us to let go of fears and prejudices, acknowledge our intuitive nature, and take whatever time we need to face the situation and figure out what to do with it. Surprisingly, the devil card also tells us it's important to maintain a sense of humor and continue to be productive, especially when, quote, the problematical aspects of a situation begin to come out in the open, end quote. Stay productive. Keep your sense of humor. Problems are going to come out in the open. The advice, similar to what we just heard in the 4 tasks of the 10 of Cups card, is to discern what is old junk and what is new treasure. We are to throw out the junk, throw it overboard, and celebrate the treasure. For we are no longer deprived children who have been treated with neglect. This is the card of the deprived, especially deprived children. The devil card tells us it's time to establish new boundaries, write new rules of engagement, and do away with the old taboos. Keywords for the devil are ravage, violence, extraordinary effort, fatality, weakness, blindness, force, vehemence, petty attitudes, pride, going to extremes, control, superstitions, fears of damnation, and greed. Question number 3. What will be the result of Ukraine and NATO bombing Russian territory? And the card that was drawn here was Justice, number 11 in the major arcana, indicating that as with the financial system, there are major lessons to be learned and changes coming, changes that will have to be dealt with. The basic message of Justice is that we need to recognize others and their needs as much as our own. And that seems to be a theme that was running through all the cards drawn. We're coming to a point where we're going to have to decide, do we take care of everybody or not? This card says that we are headed into the court system where legal and binding decisions are made. So something illegal may be involved here. When you look at the card, you see a woman seated between two gray columns on a gray platform that is sitting on a gray floor. The amount of gray in this card is a loud call for a detached and neutral approach to a situation. That's not happening in Ukraine or Russia at the moment. The gray columns represent the need to uphold truth, which in turn upholds a well-organized society. What is the truth about what's going on in Ukraine and Russia? The gray platform represents the need to be fair and impartial. And the gray floor symbolizes taking a stance of practicality and reasonableness that will not tolerate greed. The woman wears a red robe, and over it she wears like a green mantle. It's held in place by a white and red brooch, big square brooch. Red is the second most prominent color on the card, and it represents the mass of human emotions coming from that fighting, that war, and the tendency to lose control or forget one's own self-discipline. We need self-discipline. The green mantle symbolizes several things. It asks us to be aware of immaturity and naivete, which results in poor decision-making and leads to that lack of discipline I just mentioned. However, that green also represents the need for natural law and recognition of the drivers of human behavior. Natural law and the drivers of human behavior. Green is the color of growth and productive results. And if laws do not nurture and promote the growth and development of the human, then those laws become an obstacle to the evolution of society and its people. Green is also a reminder that sometimes a justice system has to be renewed. The white brooch holding the mantle in place is a symbol of the main goal of a society, which is to hold the people together in one place. The white also represents the need to stay open and flexible, ready to see the needs that drive behavior and to forgive. What do the Ukrainian people need? Is it to be left alone to make their own decisions? What do the Russian people need? Is it to be heard when they say that NATO is creeping closer and closer to their borders, and they will not tolerate that. Why won't they tolerate that? Is it because it's difficult to trust someone who has betrayed their promise to stay far away from Russian borders? Is it because it would be too late to say, oops, we shouldn't have allowed that, if NATO were right on their borders and started attacking the Russian homeland? The woman on the card holds an upright sword in her right hand that reaches all the way to the top of the card. And she has a pair of scales in her left hand. The sword symbolizes the intellect, reasoning, and critical thinking. Swords urge us to use that intellect and common sense as our main weapons, and to use or to work toward a deep and comprehensive intellectual assessment of an issue in order to figure out how to resolve it. The pair of scales has long been the symbol of balance. You see it in Libra, the astrological symbol. It's also a symbol of fairness and judgment. Scales symbolize freedom, freedom that can only be had when everyone has what they need and things are in balance. Otherwise, fighting breaks out. The scales also stand for making choices and decisions. Weighing all the pros and the cons of a situation is important. And only when we do this can we make good choices and be successful in life. Success demands a discerning assessment, being realistic, and knowing thyself. Do we really need as in, big emphasis on need, to put military men, machines, and equipment on the borders of Russia? Why? The woman wears a crown designed in the style of 3 battlements, and there's a large jewel in the center of the crown. The battlements represent the need to go to battle for what is right, to counter injustice, and to take a stand for both the material and the spiritual world. And that jewel symbolizes the third eye and the importance of listening to one's intuition, especially when making judgments and trying to resolve conflicts. What is the spiritual world's input into war? Why would they allow war? Why does war happen? Is it teaching people the hard way to resolve conflict? Are there easier ways? Yeah. Does war drive home the fact that we cannot have what we want at the expense of others who then go without or live in highly stressful conditions? It would be highly stressful for NATO to put men and machines and military equipment all along the border of Russia. Those people in that area would not be comfortable. Let's see here. Does war make it clear that intellectual communication is much easier than killing or being killed? I would hope so. A violet curtain. It doesn't look very violet in the picture, but it is. A violet curtain hangs behind the woman, and this represents the need to see behind the curtain and look for the true causes of a problem situation. Violet is the color of the highest consciousness, which should be the mainstay of any justice system. That curtain itself indicates the need to be aware of what is happening behind the curtain, especially in the legal system, but also in the fields of health and finance. This card is especially related to fighting, justice, health, and finance. The curtain, together with the sword in this card, calls for the integration and balancing of all needs in, quote, negotiations that clear away the veils of illusion, delusion, and deception, end quote. That's what that sword and that curtain call for. Clear away the veils of illusion, delusion, and deception. Negotiate. The Justice card urges deep inquiry into something, and its message is, and I love this message, quote, the more precise the inquiry, the more compassionate the judgment, end quote. Have we looked deeply at NATO, at Russia, at Ukraine, and at the decisions behind the fighting there? Who's pushing the bombing of Russia? This is not Joe Biden. He's not capable of pushing anything. When the Justice card appears in a reading, it often says, you are headed to court. Something is out of balance and must be corrected. Is this telling us that the result of the decision to bomb deep into Russia will end up dragging us into some international criminal court? Will we be fined for having been instigators and participants of this conflict? The Justice card does not represent just this abstract principle. It deals with the physical, the practical, the everyday experience of human beings who are full of life, feelings like love, contentment, lust, anger, all sorts of feelings. This is the card that deals with those and when they don't agree with one another. Are we and the other people who are pushing the war with Russia going to end up in court trying to explain what we were doing and why? Can we even begin to explain things like aggression, greed, or delusions of control? The Justice card symbolizes the alpha and the omega of legalities. The buck stops here. It also symbolizes financial battles and the business of life. Keywords for the Justice card are law, balance, conscious treatment of grade passions, assessment, judgment, impartiality, innocence, the consequences of one's behavior, orderly society, escape from greed, fairness, clear thinking, a synthesizing mind, creative ideas, useful decisions, and negotiation. Question number 4. What advice does the animal kingdom have for us in December? And I had to laugh out loud when I pulled this card 2 days before Thanksgiving. It was the turkey. This is a wonderful card. So turkey medicine teaches that regardless of what happens in your life and the world, we will always have what we need. This includes food, shelter, warmth, a means of transportation, and good company. The turkey is the symbol of the great giveaway. Among many Native Americans, turkey is known as the giveaway eagle. The giveaway is something that was practiced among them on a regular basis in order to make sure that everyone had what they needed. The person who gave away the most was the person who was loved, respected, and honored the most. In Western society today, people have much, much more than they need. They end up stuffing basements, garages, and rented storage units with everything they have no use for and don't want to let go of. The baby boom generation has started to downsize, and they're getting rid of beds, tables, chairs, lamps, and every other kind of household item you can name. Where's this stuff going? I hope not into the trash bin, because there are people in need everywhere. You know, I've never been homeless, but I've come close. People who live in tents or from grocery carts discover quite quickly that they can't carry all the trappings of a 3-bedroom house, and they just as quickly figure out how to live without it. Is there a message here? Turkey medicine suggests that instead of trying to accumulate as much as we can, we could give things away and think about being more creative with less. Turkey medicine was long thought to be the medicine of saints and mystics. They acted in ways that benefited others, and they always tried to help those who needed it. This card is a reminder that all life is sacred. Plants, animals, and people. It tells us to learn to recognize and accept the gifts that flow to us every day, and to practice simple gratitude for those gifts. These gifts can be anything from winning the lottery to enjoying your flower garden to watching a UFO streak across the sky or hover overhead. Because of the wonderful nature of the turkey, there are only a few cautions that come with this card. So, are you gobbling up everything in sight? Yeah, don't be a Bill Gates. Are you letting your internal Scrooge have the upper hand? Do you think you're better than everyone else, or that the world owes you a living? Be aware that if you give in order to receive or to impress others, that's not giving. It's manipulation. Tisk, tisk. If any of these apply to you, your generosity of spirit is being neglected. The true spiritual message of the turkey is, this is how you create the world. You do it by being practical and fighting off evil. Greed, hoarding, and selfishness are neither practical nor good. Turkey is a very adaptable bird and symbolizes the need to stay flexible. Didn't we just hear that? Stay flexible and roll with the changes. It is related to the pituitary. Turkey is related to the pituitary, higher consciousness, clairvoyance, and the third eye. Turkey calls forth the feminine energies in all people, both male and female, because females are generative, life-giving, and males are the protective, life-saving half. Every woman has a male side and every male has a feminine side. This card calls forth the feminine. Give life. As we go through this next month, look around you and assess what you have and what you really need. If you're burdened with an overstuffed basement, an obese garage, or payments from a storage space, think about lightening your load and clearing the energy of all that stuff with your own personal giveaway. Keep what makes sense or what you need to be secure in times of chaos. And you will be surprised at what a difference all of this makes. So that's it for this month, for this tarot. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving, and I hope you'll have a wonderful Christmas. Merry Christmas. See you next month.